Started working on the next hat. This is the hat that I'm working on right now. So I've got it down here for a reference, just to make sure I don't go in the wrong direction. Right now it kind of looks like candy corn. These are fun to do. You know, sometimes people are like, how can you stand to do the same thing over and over? It really doesn't bother me. I do find it fun seeing the different color combinations that the kids put together and trying to match them or come close, you know? So, like I said, it's no big deal. I'm enjoying it. So how has your day gone? Have you been able to get some of the items checked off your list that you were wanting to? I did not. Wanted to be able to get a few things done so that I could go to a worship service later on, but didn't happen, so that's okay. Just move on to the next thing, right? We'll get through it somehow. It's no big deal. So, had a little bit of a floater that popped up today. It was driving me nuts at first because I was like, do I have a hair in my eye? It was so, one of those that was just very thin, whatnot, so. But I realized didn't feel like I had anything in my eye, so it must be a floater. Yay, floaters! Don't you love getting older? Not at all. I have quite a few other YouTubers that I would like to get caught up on. So maybe I'll be able to do that tonight later on while I'm working on some of the things that I didn't get accomplished that I wanted to get accomplished. And I always find it interesting. I put so much stress on myself because I didn't get everything done that I wanted to do. And there's a part of me that's, I don't know why we do that. Just interesting. The way we feel that we need to push ourselves to that point. Oops. Cats have been kind of quiet today for them. I'm not real sure what's going on. They've gotten kind of lazy today. Not really been playing and acting up like they normally do throughout the day. Maybe they're getting ready for the time change, right? I am filming this Saturday afternoon. You are probably not going to see this till Tuesday. So, yeah. Just thought I would pre-warn you that you're probably not going to see this until Tuesday. Maybe Monday evening, I don't know. Bit of a crazy week that's going to be happening for me. It's the first of the month, and there's always lots of things that have to be done, and so do need to work on getting that blanket sewn together. Been putting that off and biddle-farting around. Maybe I'll get that done this evening. Put that first. That way I can crochet around the edges. Yeah, maybe that's what I'll do. Haven't seen a whole lot of stuff that's going on news-wise other than, there are a bunch of protesters that tried to breach one of the naval bases today, or last night. Not last night. Halloween night. And it's like, there's a part of me that says I wish they would use the water cannons like Japan does. Of course, Japan sprays their protesters with blue paint. Personally, I think they should use water cannons and spray them with orange paint. That way they can wear it as a badge of honor with their TDS. That would be fun, right? I do think it's interesting that President Trump's and their lawyers have asked the judges to clarify how he is supposed to pay out those SNAP benefits with the contingency plan since, one, there's a law written into that contingency plans cannot be used during a government shutdown. There's that. It's not enough to cover what's in there. Of course, then it becomes depleted. And if there is an emergency, say a hurricane makes landfall, they'd have no money to help out with the hurricane victims. Then you have the judges that have rulings to force the executive power, the judicial over the executive power, to force them to do something against the legislative power. And see, in the back of my mind, I have this sneaky suspicion that they've developed this plan, these judges, because of who they're working with in the background, that they would think they could force him to do it, he would just do it automatically without understanding the legal ramifications of it. And then later on, they'd come back and charge him. So, I don't know if that's true or not, but that is just something I think is sort of in their plotting and planning. I would hope it's not, but can't help but think it probably is. So I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on that. I had someone send me this link with this woman talking about the $2,000 stimulus plan that's supposed to be coming out. But of course, it only affects those who filed income tax for 2024. Of course, some of us that are on on Social Security, we don't have to file income taxes because we make an income lower than that. we don't get anything back. So it's kind of like, why bother? So if you didn't file, then you wouldn't get a $2,000 stimulus check. But I'm not so sure that that's real. You know what I mean? I have not heard anything about it. I've not seen anything put forth by the Congress about that. So, not real sure where that came from. But it would be interesting, wouldn't it, to see that. Supposedly it's supposed to help the economy. I honestly think one of the ways you could help the economy is quit spending so much money in places that you shouldn't be spending money. I mean, that's my personal opinion. And then you could lower the taxes, federal taxes, so you weren't gouging people's eyes out left and right. Haven't seen any deer today. I don't know what's going on there. But then they sometimes do this thing, pack mentality, where you'll see them up higher on the road, higher up from me, and then they come back down. So maybe they're in that phase, scooting around. Quite possible. Although I keep seeing that one groundhog that comes up and, he just chews on the grass. But I think it's funny the way that he comes up and sits in the yard, then looks up at the front door like he's expecting me to open it up and give him some carrots or something. But having quite a bit of fun with playing with I've been in the back practicing on my free motion quilting. It's been a while, and there were a couple of patterns that I wanted to review with the free motion quilting that I hadn't done in quite some time. There was a part of me that goes, can I even redo them? Still do that pattern? Yeah, I could see where the gal that had been teaching us, different quilting patterns and things, talked about how when you really practice it and keep at it, even if you get away from it for some time, then you'll find you'll come back to it easily. It's the muscle memory. So I am seeing that. All right, let's see. I need to get a new color. Let me get down here and get my new color. Had to stop at the Wally green, Wally World. And pick up a green, because this is the green most of the kids use to color their pictures. All I had were lighter than this, neon greens, and what was the other? Dark hunter greens. So I must have used all my greens somewhere along the way. And I went looking into the green tote and could not find. So apparently I did a lot of hats and used all of it. Oh, come on. Yarn barf. And this, this color green's not something that I really gravitate towards. So I throw the hat down on the floor. I just find it funny how there are certain greens I'm like, I'm okay with. And other greens I'm like, I don't think I'll bother with that one. Oh, goodness. My friend and I went to Hobby Lobby today, and I spent a little more than I planned on, but I still stayed within a price range I was okay with. Got a couple of pieces of fabric. Of course, fabric was not on sale this week, but yarn was. I did pick up a blue because I need a blue, and it's the color blue that's in that picture. I have a lot lighter. Couldn't find something that was close to that. Didn't have any royal, Royal Navy, or what do they call it? It's where it's that lighter shade of blue. I call it Royal Navy. It's not really Royal Navy, but couldn't find that color anywhere in my stash, in my garage full of yarns. So while we were there, I picked up a Crafter's Secret in that blue color there, which is a big skein, but I noticed there were a couple of hats that wanted that color, so I'm going to use that, and then I'll use that somewhere else, like in a blanket or something. And let me see, 3-Eye Atlas is supposed to have picked up speed again. Who knows how it does that? I did get caught up on some of the other videos on it that where folks have been keeping track of it with the Chinese Observatory and the European Space Observatory. And of course, they had thought that when it was behind the sun, that it was sending a beam into the sun. If it was behind the sun, how could you see that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't know the way the planets are lined up and all the cameras that are facing towards them. Maybe that's my problem. Not having a clue. But, yeah, interesting. I'd watched this one TikTok video, and I went trying to see if it was, if it was true, or, if it was just someone's imagination, or they were making it up to get views, that kind of thing. But supposedly, and this is what I think is interesting, Halloween night, that New York City in Times Square had a big blackout. And it was that way for several minutes. And then when it came back on all the billboards, was the face of a black man just staring straight ahead. Have any of you heard that? Like I said, I can't find anything that verifies it. But then again, the media keeps things so well hidden. They've been ignoring the genocide that's going on in the Sudan right now between those two, between the rebel faction of the, was it Fasar? Can't keep up with those two. There's a militant group, and then there's whatever the government military was. But there's this actual war going on between them. But they're killing people left and right. And it had gotten so bad that you could see the blood stain from the satellites and from the space station. So, but they've been experiencing a famine, I think, for the past year. And that's, you don't see the media talking about that at all either. I think I actually see more stuff about what's going on around the world on social media than you do with the news stations. And that just, that's kind of odd, if you ask me. You would think that they would pick up on all these different news stories instead of constantly, trying to tear each other down. But we don't see that. I miss Walter Cronkite. I don't know. What about you? Do you guys miss him? I miss when we had actually real news stations that just gave you the news and let you decide which way you wanted to lean on that one. There have been more videos released about that group that is planning the what I'm going to call an insurrection. On November the 5th, there have been more videos released of some of the planning, some of the things they plan on doing. Their whole idea is to remove Trump from power within this next week or so. There's a lot of things that part of me goes, so are they going to try to carry out a coup? Establish themselves as the government? Then we would be under fascist control? For real? Or what is their goal? It's, sometimes, when I hear these things, when I watch some of those videos, some of those meetings, and, how they're planning and things, I always go back to the cartoon Pinky and the Brain and think, oh, they're working on a world domination. Okay. Let's see how well that works. But I'm curious, if you drive Trump from power, that puts Vance and whoever, comes up against and all that kind of stuff. I guess they could make Johnson the vice president. Then they'd have to vote on a new House leader. I think there are some things that I think are rather interesting, how people create things up in their head. Like, this whole thing with Turning Point USA and Erica Kirk and J.D. Vance doing that tour together. and people making a big stink about the way Erica had hugged J.D. Vance and had her hands around his head and all that, and trying to say that they were cheating, that you can't make some of this up. However, what I find interesting is Erica Kirk and Usha are pretty close, as well as, Charlie Kirk and J.D. Vance were pretty close as well. And, when you try to impose your impressions on other people and how they react to one another, sometimes you're goofy as all get out. And I'll give you an example. One of the fellows that I worked with at the hospital, for the longest time, we have become so close, very good friends, and we had talked about some things that we've never shared with other people because we were that close. The people that I worked with, they thought that we were dating. And we were both looked at each other like, what? Dating? Ew. But it was the impression because the way that we would get together when we would talk, call each other. They knew we called each other. They knew that sometimes we met each other for lunch, like once a week, or he'd been over to my house, I'd been over to his. It's just bizarre where people come up with these ideas. And then I saw another person talking about they're trying to set those two up so that Vance would be president and Erica Kirk would be vice president. I'm like, well, I don't know if she has those kind of aspirations. That wouldn't be a bad ticket either. But, I don't know all that much about her, what her politics are, so. But I just think it's interesting where people come up with some of these crazy ideas and you go, where do they get this from? Just makes me wonder. But you can't make some of this up, some of the things that they come up with. And I have to tell you, I was in the grocery stores today. I didn't see anybody getting robbed or looted. Needed to get some coffee, so we stopped to get some coffee. And that's generally because I will stop there to get Wegmans brand of coffee because I like the flavor of it. And because it's a little bit cheaper than some of the coffee brands that I'm seeing out there. And it's the same, it's a Colombian roast. So, I think it's almost, it's like 2.5 pounds of coffee I pick up for under $20. And I don't know about you, but my Walmart, some of the prices that they've got for coffee, I used to drink McDonald's Colombian roast. And I think that ran me, at one point it used to be about $13 for a pretty large can of it. That would keep me going for a month. I think that's now up to 22 something. So right now, while it's still fairly cheap, I'm going to be picking up that coffee. I've been seeing a lot of people putting out their different ways to do some large batch cooking. And apparently on TikTok, I got onto the, what do they call it? The bean talk. Like when you get to watching certain videos and then all of a sudden that's all you're seeing. I was watching a video and it just reminded me of my days living in New Mexico and Texas. We ate a lot of beans. And some of the ways that change up the flavor of the beans, add to it, and that kind of thing. So I got on that bean talk too. And I just find it funny how that works with the algorithms because they do pick up, what you've watched, what you've liked. And then they tend to keep sending you to that type of videos. Same way with YouTube. Reels as well. And that's that part where they put the AI into everything. But I think the worst thing that they could do putting AI in is deciding whether the insurance is going to cover procedures for you or not. That should always be reviewed by a human. If you ask me, it should be reviewed by a human and not ChatGPT. That's my 2 cents on that, and that's all I'm going to stick to it. We've had a lot of craziness, it seems, this year. Of course, it's not been as bad as the Summer of Love, Trump's first administration years. But I don't know. Sometimes I wonder about the way that things are going, the way that some of these government officials are, quite frankly, acting. I'm hoping that the Democrats will pull their heads out of their rear ends and vote yes to reopen the government so they could actually get down to some real negotiating. Yes, negotiating. But I gotta be real honest. I kind of agree with not adding 1.5 trillion healthcare subsidies in there. I just don't think that would be a real good idea. I think you could compromise a little bit lower, maybe 500 billion to work things in and to help ease some of that, but that absolute 1.5 trillion is, I would imagine, a big sticking point for a lot of people. And then wanting to add some of those programs in that they already have documentation. The money wasn't getting to those programs. because programs weren't established, weren't being used. You know, the money, if the money were being used where it said it was being used, I would have no problem with that. And then the thing with the Democrats suing the USDA because they'd simply asked a question, how many illegals were benefiting from food stamps. Kind of confused about that, because you can't say they don't qualify for them. And then when you ask the question, how many were receiving them, and you get all butthurt and bent out of shape and decide to sue the USDA for that question. It's one of those things that's like, we have a right as American citizens to know where our tax dollars are going. And they just don't want us. They just don't want to, be forthcoming and let us know. And a little bit of a problem with that. Like I said, I do think we have a right to know. All right, guys, I am going to let you go. A couple things I need to get started on, working on, and finished up, and all that kind of nonsense. And my blue yarn's across the room from me, and I can't reach it. And my voice is starting to go. So I will see you again tomorrow. Everybody have a great day and stay blessed.